the original Wonka. No, the original Wonka. Like, dude, that's in my DNA. Like,
Yeah. Oh
that's
yeah, no, I
made
love
me
that
who
movie.
I am today.
Yeah, I saw watched the movie
And
like 100 times as a kid.
yeah, and the even the Johnny Depp version, I thought was all right.
I thought it
Like,
was fun. I thought it was a fun take.
yeah,
People really hate it. I think it's a fun take on the source material. It's nowhere. It's not the best version. It's the inferior version. But I think it's a fun
right,
take on it.
right. No, I agree.
Yeah. Anyway, we can't waste time talking about Wonka on the transition, Jason, because I already took probably over an hour yelling. I'm pacified now. I'm calm. I'm
Right.
good.
Yeah.
Tell me something that's not going to make me angry.
Boy, do I have a tale for you then?
Perfect.
Um, so are you how familiar are you with the idea of subliminal messaging? Like,
Subliminal messaging.
what do you think of? Because you're
Well, I think about
there's there's an age difference between us, right? Like, yeah,
without giving away anything that you are about to talk about. Some other
uh-huh,
things that I think of are the McDonald's logo flashing for a brief. Like, you used to see these like things on the internet of like McDonald's logo flashes for a brief second in children's show and stuff.
right, uh-huh,
You usually it was fake. I think of the movie. I think of a lot of subliminal messaging. It's weird because subliminal messaging. I know it's a part of the conspiracy side of it, which you're going to talk about.
uh-huh.
Uh, so I don't want to venture too much into that territory. But there is also a very real way that companies do play with like weird quirks in psychology. I mean, like
Oh,
every
yeah,
fast food
yeah.
restaurant
Mhm.
uses red and yellow in their logo because it makes you hungrier and stuff like that.
Right, right. No, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, I don't think we're talking
Yeah.
about fast food marketing and sign design, are we?
Uh, we'll
What's the
broach
deal with
some
the
of
Baconator?
that. Yeah,
Did James Cameron approve that, or was it kind of
yeah,
fair use?
yeah. Um, yeah. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of subliminal messaging
All
and
right.
kind of where we stand today. Um, I'm I've pulled my sources include Scientific American, Live Science, a place called Explore Your Mind, Billboard Music, and Louder Music for the information here.
I'm going to
So you know
say,
it's good, right?
controversial take, don't explore your mind.
Yeah,
Stay in the
yeah.
safe areas.
It's probably yeah. You're probably not going to like it.
Yeah, I
Um,
stay. I have a little gated cabin in my mind, and then I have the don't think about it zone.
yep, right. Um, our story begins uh, way back on the sun-drenched rocky shores of ancient Greece, the 5th century BCE. Um, Philosopher Aristotle and other philosophers of the time, including the sophists, which, um, yeah, ancient Greek philosophers who thought a lot about like rhetoric, like
Yeah,
words and
and the
argument.
sophists essentially were people who will say anything to win an argument. Is my
Exactly,
understanding, right? So
exactly so.
a
Yeah.
sophist, a lot of modern debate culture is sophistry.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah. Mhm.
yes, which
And
is bad.
yeah, and kind of the big philosophers we think of from the time, like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle,
Mm.
were very much against sophistry.
Mm.
Uh, and
I mean, by
uh,
its nature, it's something you're not supposed to like. I mean, now people do just kind of admit they're doing it, but
yeah, yeah, but but yeah, sort of the thrust, as we've alluded to here, is there was a focus on the idea of like persuasive language and a notion that there were particular words or ways of speaking that would persuade or influence someone maybe without them even realizing it.
mm-hmm. And
Like,
I'm sorry that you said that was something that the sophists believed.
not only the sophists, like it was something in philosophy, I feel like almost in general.
Yeah, and can you
I
go
mean,
a
I'm
bit more
sure
into
there were
that? Is it
outliers,
something like
but
the idea of, you said certain specific words and phrases, like people were Manchurian candidates?
in a way, I feel doesn't Manchurian Candidate, because I did consider that, think about that in terms of this conspiracy, but isn't that something that's like implanted,
Yeah,
and
no,
then
that's more
later
MK
there's like
Ultra.
a trigger?
Like Manchurian, but what I'm saying is like, are you saying that these are phrases that just innately you can do to trigger a
Yes,
response in somebody?
right,
Like the
yes,
brown
yeah,
note.
yeah, no,
Are you
exactly
going to
so.
talk about the brown note?
Not in this episode, but that was definitely something I was thinking about for for a
Yeah,
different
for our
episode.
audience that doesn't know, the brown note is a legendary, as of yet undiscovered
Yeah,
frequency that theoretically would make every person listening to it shit
right,
themselves.
right, like a sound, yeah,
Yeah.
like a sound frequency that would make you just shit. Um, yeah, so that's kind of the genesis of the idea of subliminal messages,
All right.
that something that you're not even aware of can influence you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as time goes by, the idea of like an unconscious or subconscious mind um, uh, gains a lot of traction.
And this is
I mean,
mostly with Freud.
Freud, yeah, Sigmund Freud, the a lot of the what 19th and 20th century, there was kind of a turn towards occultism
Oh yeah.
uh, that also like sort of supported this idea, like
Figures like Aleister
mesmerism, where you can,
Crowley.
yes, exactly,
Yes.
yeah, where the notion that like you can somehow make people do things against their will via something that like they don't even know is happening.
And we're talking about the early 20th century now still. We're pre stuff like
Very
MK Ultra, pre the
yes,
intelligence agencies trying to use this different
yes,
effect.
yeah,
All right, very
yes, very early. Yeah, like I mean, Freud was what 19th century. Aleister Crowley was 19th century. Like um, science, as we currently understand it, or I should say, our current methods of science, like we're just starting to form at the time. So a lot of this was sort of anecdotal. Um, yeah,
No, I
and
mean that makes
yeah,
it's really interesting. And I know a lot of this stuff is still simultaneously debunked and yet, developed upon and forming the basis of modern psychology.
right. Well, modern psychology, yeah, there is it's pretty fractured in turn. Like, there's no sort of unifying theory. Um, there's still a lot of like separate ideas, but the idea that part of who you are is this sort of unconscious or subconscious like feelings, impulses, motivations that you don't even realize that's what you're acting upon, right? Like, because your dad didn't tell you I love you enough when you were a kid, like now, um,
Yeah, you're
now
saying that like somebody's
like
personality could be, a series of jokes and bits and little routines and
right,
efforts. And then in reality, there's like this just deep gnawing void at the end of them that when they like stop and are quiet and think about for even a second, they're just faced with like incomprehensible and innumerable horror at the fact that
yeah,
they're going to die
yeah,
and everyone's going to die. And then eventually
right,
all their names will just be fucking forgotten. Uh,
right,
you know,
yeah, very
uh,
existential dread, yeah, like, yeah, so
oh, that
you
sounds
fill it,
stupid to me.
yeah, no, so you just fill it with like noise constantly.
Yeah. And anyway,
um
thanks to everyone who listens.
uh in So with these ideas in mind, uh in the early like 1940s in the United States during World War II, uh there were subliminal messages, just real quick, images, like vocal phrases, uh text on screen, that would flash. But they were subliminal messages were inserted into radio programs, television programs, movies. 43 seems kind of early for television, but
If you, well, I think there was some TV in the 40s.
oh no, yes, there absolutely
not that a lot of like most people didn't have it, but
right. For example, there was a Daffy Duck cartoon that during which the text "buy war bonds" like flash for a frame, so it was so quick that you may not even consciously notice it.
That's interesting.
But it was there.
So, constructive criticism.
Yeah,
because I'm a big comic book fan too, so I see a lot of these buy war bond things in old comic books and old cartoons.
Yeah,
it seems to me that children are not the best people, are not don't have a lot of like spend money on bonds. They're not big into investing, is what I'm saying.
Right.
Is a war bond? Do you invest in a war bond? Is the idea is like you're supporting the military, but you do get your money back as a treasury secured bond?
Yeah, it's a bond, pretty much. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like
we still have war bonds. I imagine it's just like they're all just funded by Halliburton now.
Yeah, I think they're just treasury bonds. I think that like World War II was maybe the only or the last time that there was something this specific.
Huh.
I mean, because
I guess it was probably the only time that you could be like, you could tell people, hey, give us this money for more bombs. And people would be like, yeah, it sounds good.
Yeah. No, and both of us have came up in times when the U.S. was constantly at war.
Yeah.
With, somewhere or other. And yeah, I have never in my lifetime heard of war bonds or been offered to buy a war bond. I think it was like a World War II thing. And I think that cartoons at the time maybe weren't always like geared towards kids. Like you would go, wasn't it, back
you
in
go
the
to
day,
the movie theater because it was like you would have newsreels
yes,
that was film serials, like things that you could now watch as a movie but showed up as a series of like 20-minute episodes.
Right. Yes, exactly. Like you would go to the theater and be there like 4 hours because there's cartoon. Well, I think they just played constantly. That you would just
drop in, sit in front of the big screen.
Yeah, so it was kind of like you just come in and there'd be, as you say, newsreels, cartoons, serials. But anyway, at that time in the 40s, there was no scientific research or evidence to suggest that this worked. But they figured, why not? Like, what's the harm in, trying to as a democracy, trying to the government subtly influencing its citizens.
Now, which agency would have was this the department? Was this do you know which agency this would have been?
No, I don't. But I have to imagine like
there was no CIA.
No, it would be like Department of Defense, probably.
Oh yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that like they would have seen that as something like patriotic or like they thought that it's a little nefarious, but maybe not. Like,
it isn't. It is well. A lot of the most nefarious things that the government does now started during World War II.
Yes,
because that's when like it was legitimately like the quote unquote right thing to, or at least the idealistic thing to do.
Right. Like no, we have to.
Yeah. Like it is very easy to have an attitude we have to when you have an enemy that's genuinely like evil and horrific. But then you also have to consider the type of world that you yourself are creating.
Yeah, and I think
lesson for our politician listeners.
Right. If you are a politician, please write in.
And stop beating that homeless person, please. I know you have to do it to get hard and make love to your wife to get that campaign family later, but knock it off for today. Take a day off.
No, I think that's right. And I also think that like at this point, looking back on history, we get the sense that like World War II, everyone was on board, at least in the
No,
America.
you had Nazis at Madison Square
Oh,
Garden.
right. But that's like the lead up.
Okay, yeah.
Just the idea that like there was definitely like a contingent of people that objected to the war on like humanitarian,
Yeah, I mean, you had people who were
like
pacifists.
pacifist grounds that kind of get bulldozed over.
Yeah.
Because we realize now, like, oh fuck, like some of these people were doing is, absolutely horrible. But I think by
It's
and large,
very
like,
easy to say that everybody who was opposed to the U.S. involvement in the war was doing so on the grounds of being a fascist, but you had people who may have been pacifists who were opposed to it. And also keep in mind that publicly in the United States, like there was not the extent of the horrors of what was happening was not known. So people knew it was unjust, and people knew that it was bad, and people, may have even known about the existence of camps. But, my understanding is the extent of the project that was occurring in Europe was not public knowledge until we had basically won the war.
Right. Until
like Eisenhower demanded that we film the concentration camps, and people know. I might be wrong about that. I'm not, as we've well established, I'm no history expert, but
no, I think you're right. And not to, I think not to excuse but I think your average like German soldier didn't even know. Because isn't that like there's kind of famously
there's footage of them reacting. I mean, you don't. Yeah, a lot of people
like,
don't know.
Just breaking down, like, that was a little bit of it. That was a little bit of a diversion.
Yeah.
So anyway, in the 40s, there was again like flashes and sort of popular culture. Again, mostly sort of pro-government, support the government. In 1957, a advertising executive named James Vickery, yeah, he in the movie Picnic.
I'm gonna say Vickery sounds like a new Catholic Church office created for priests that already have molested.
James Vickery announces that he as an advertising executive in the movie Picnic. I haven't seen that personally.
Man, that's really. Movies were really fucking boring back then, weren't they? That was a movie.
Yeah.
The most boring activity to do as a family was a movie. Let's eat lunch outside.
Right. And and we'll film it. And, anyway.
Wow, egg salad.
Yeah. In a New Jersey theater playing the movie Picnic, he had inserted just like one frame, 1,000, a microsecond that would flash the words "drink Coca-Cola" and later "hungry, eat popcorn." And after 6 weeks of playing the movie in this New Jersey theater, claimed that the popcorn sales increased by almost 60%. And Coke sales increased by almost 20%. So that's kind of the first claim that, quote unquote, scientific claim
the construction of the modern New Jersey physique.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and, unfortunately, what he didn't tell you,
habits, I guess.
What he didn't tell you back then was actually Springsteen was just getting back on tour, so everyone had to be carbo loading to keep the energy up, to keep up with the boss, old though he may be.
Right. Wait, in 57?
Yeah.
Oh.
12-year-old Bruce Springsteen.
Also, later that year, a researcher named Vance Packard published a book called Hidden Persuaders that was ostensibly about subliminal messaging in advertising, which led to congressional hearings and the Federal Trade Commission thinking about subliminal messaging kind of for the first time and trying to decide like how to regulate that.
But that afternoon, that congressional committee went out to see the movie Picnic and came back and decided, you know what,
right.
everything's fine.
Yeah, no, I'm sold. Yeah. 1962, so 5 years later, even though now this has the attention of the U.S. government in terms of, regulating advertising around this, James Vickery admits that his study was a hoax, that he did not actually study it, that he made it up whole cloth.
Really?
Yeah, because he was trying to drum up business for his advertising agency.
Oh, man, I can't believe that.
No, yeah, what a surprise that someone lied about something.
In New Jersey, of all places.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm absolutely shocked. So at this point, we have, there is sort of a public and governmental awareness / panic about subliminal messages being, influencing people, even though the original study turned out to be faked. At this point, that the train's left the station. Mm-hmm. Like, this is something that people just sort of accept.
Okay. So all this time, though, like, there have been attempts at subliminal messaging, none of which seem to have worked.
Right.
And if they did work, it's negligible.
Right. So,
it's like that Daffy Duck cartoon, even. It's like fucking everything was telling you to buy war bonds. So, like, whether you were told openly or in secret, you were probably thinking about it all the fucking time.
Right.
Because it said it on the fucking toilet paper.
Right. So, yes, to sort of peek ahead a little bit, scientific research throughout the 60s, 70s, and 80s tended to disconfirm or couldn't confirm that subliminal messages like this did anything whatsoever. Like, most of them determined that, like, yeah, this is something that doesn't work.
So, but I mean, all right, so this is what's happening throughout these times. Are companies still investing in it in any way? Or is it only for out of curiosity?
I think that no, I don't think that that advertisers did a lot of the subliminal messaging in terms of like something flashing, but like advertisers in general, as you say, like had a pretty good understanding of where like human psychology was at that moment and would play on that.
So they wanted to play to the subconscious, but it was more sophisticated than just hide a message in your movie.
Yes, it might be a lot of like, sexualizing products or, imagery like within the logo. But
that's why it's really interesting, because when you look at Joe Camel, the Camel cigarettes logo, you look at the Camel that's like on the box, and that's the original logo. And you look at how he developed before they banned him. Look at how much bigger the dong got.
Yeah. No, that's actually a great example. And also, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever, because I don't know when Camel cigarettes came out, but throughout my entire life, from early 70s onward, you always, if you wanted to get a pack of cigarettes, they were always behind a counter, right? Like, it's not like you would pick up the pack and be able to look at it to see. I know exactly what you're talking about.
I think even like back in the day, they were behind the counter because like people didn't want, they were probably a popular thing to steal.
Right. So it doesn't make sense to put that much effort deliberately into having,
well, I think that's why it makes sense, though. It's why it does make sense to have a good, because you're looking at somebody behind a counter and you need to be able to tell them which one do you want. So that's why most cigarettes, they're the name of the cigarette in big letters, a color, or
Right.
something like a camel that you could say, oh, I want the camel.
Oh, right. But as far as like within the camel, the image of the dude uh with the heart on, is that what you're talking about?
Joe Camel. Oh no!
No, no,
I
no.
was making a joke that I was making a joke
Oh, the
that
like
started as
cartoon
leading like to
character.
a joke about Joe
Yeah,
Camel,
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
then it was
Yeah.
actually a joke. Like
Sorry.
his penis
Yeah.
did not actually get bigger. Wait, is there a dude with a heart on in the camel logo?
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah. There was. I don't know if there still is.
Ah, I think that's just the artist having fun.
Uh, I just happen to have
Jason,
for
I'm
no
very disappointed in
particular
you.
reason.
You got to take care of your voice, Jason. As your producer, as your friend, I am concerned for you. As your producer, you better put that fucking pack of cigarettes down, or I will put you back in the cage. I will
Come
put you
on.
back. Do you want to go back to goddamn confinement?
I think it adds to the sort of gravelly,
No, that's true.
like sexual, a very like, yeah, very arousing kind of voice that I have. Uh, no, I'll send you a picture of it. But yes, they're within the camel. Uh, if you know what you're looking for, there is a naked dude with a heart on.
That's cool. That's cool to know. During
Yeah.
the 2 years in college that I smoked, my cigarette was Camel Turkish Golds, and I never noticed that.
Yeah. Um, no, and we'll get to that. Yeah, like I recognize it now because I was told.
Could have hinted at me coming to terms with my bisexuality. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Um, right.
Camel
So
make me
anyway,
bisexual, Jason. Is this what we're getting at?
I don't know. I don't know if I'm the one that can answer that for you.
Sorry, continue.
If anything, I would think that, no, I'm not going there. All right.
All right.
So the year is 62, right? James Vickery, dude who, put subliminal messages in Picnic, the beloved film. Picnic.
Beloved movie.
Yeah. Admits that it was fake.
What? Really?
So we're going to step away from the world of advertising for a moment, and we're going to look at we're going to go to 1966 Liverpool, England. There's a popular boy band.
Which one?
Based out of there at the time.
Oh, I think I know. I think I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah.
Herman's Hermits.
Mm-hmm. No, it's the Beatles.
Mm-hmm.
They have in their music started experimenting with a recording technique called backmasking.
Okay. I've heard of this.
Yeah, where you record something is recorded and then inserted backwards into the rest of the song. So you'll have a you'll have your song, but within it there are parts that, say, the guitar part is recorded backwards, so it has like a completely sort of different kind of trippy alien sound. This was kind of there was kind of a musical movement at the time. I believe it's called like French concrete music. I have no idea what that is. Punch it into Spotify. Let me know what
French concrete.
Yeah.
No, this joke. It's too blue. It's too blue. Yeah. I can't say it. This joke. I can go blue. I can't go this blue. My father-in-law listens to the podcast.
The point being, at the time, there was kind of a lot of experimental, like, music, like instrument recording, musical technology was kind of advancing.
Mhm.
A lot of bands were playing with.
By the way, people talk about, sorry, just very briefly, people talk about George Martin. They talk about the innovation in Europe. People forget to mention Lee Scratch Perry, who did a lot of this in Jamaica and also is very much responsible for the creation of modern music. I just think that's important to point out.
No, thank you.
And courageous of me for to do so.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. No, very brave. Thank you. Yeah. So anyway, this is becoming kind of a more popular musical technique. The Beatles being extremely popular are the ones that are kind of known for this.
Mm-hmm.
That I think the album is called Rain.
No, the song Rain. The song Rain. It's off of Revolver. They use this a bunch on Revolver, on Rain, on I'm Only Sleeping. You see it a ton on Magical Mystery Tour as well. Basically defines that era through the White Album, and then once you get back to Abbey Road, they're going back to their roots and such.
Cool. No, thank you. Yeah, because I'm going to be honest, I'm not a big Beatles fan.
Oh,
that's fine.
That's cool. That is so cool.
Yeah, that's so brave of me.
Yeah, it's so cool. Yeah,
I get their popularity. Like, I appreciate what they've done for music, but I don't.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say they're pretty good.
I think so. You know what? Actually, I would agree with that. They're pretty good. Not my thing. But anyway, so they start experimenting with this idea of backmasking, recording putting backward recorded tracks within the song, whether it's vocals, guitar, whatever. This actually gives rise to the Paul is Dead conspiracy.
Oh, yeah.
The idea that Paul McCartney died in 62?
In the early 60s. That the boy band era Paul and the experimental art Beatles Paul are different people, essentially.
Yes, exactly.
And in turn, arguably, explains how they feel like different bands. It falls apart if your favorite Beatles album's Rubber Soul. That's all I'll say.
So, since late 60s, when musicians were deliberately putting in backmasked messages, or excuse me, using backmasking in their music, as time went on, people just would listen to things backwards on occasion, right? Like throughout the 70s, when you're buying music, it's a record, a phonograph,
right?
And that's fairly easy to run backwards. Even if I think like higher end music equipment at the time, there was a button that would just play it backwards. Otherwise, you could just
literally just flip it around. It's not good for. It's probably not good for the record or the record machine to do it, but you could do it.
Right. No. As a kid, my dad would get so pissed when I would do that. You're fucking up the needle.
Did it fuck up the needle?
I don't know. I was a kid. I don't remember my parents.
You probably weren't very gentle with it.
Needle very often, but
I don't think little Jason was the most gentle with the family stuff. I'm gonna say it.
No, I was not. So people would just routinely now, because it has become kind of a musical technique and it was easy to do, they'd listen to music backwards.
Yeah.
And it was people were hearing in the popular music of the day, like they were picking up a lot of like antisocial and almost and like satanic satanic messages,
and it also probably sounded like shit.
Yes. I think that all right, so examples of this are in Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven. I think that's kind of the like Paragon case
Right.
of if you listen to it backwards, it says something about little
Something my
Satan.
sweet Satan, right?
Yes, yeah, right, and like following a path.
Yeah.
Also in the Eagles Hotel California. I mean,
That's a scary and ominous song.
right. I was going to say, like, you listen to it, just listen to it. And
Yeah.
then it has like, yeah, but there's supposedly like a satanic message if you
It's
play it
such a weird
backwards.
song that the Eagles are a band that all their songs are like, take it easy, hang
Right.
out, go to
And
the
then
beach.
yeah,
And then they
and
all
then
fucking
Hotel
hate each other and want to
California.
kill each other. And they have one song that's just, what if The Shining happened to us?
Yes. Yeah. No, I totally agree. Again, not to I'm not a big I'm not the Eagles.
I'm not a
biggest
huge
fan.
Eagles fan either.
Yeah. Um
I'm not divorced, so. And I think you need a divorce to get into the concert.
yeah. The band Queen, Another One Bites the Dust. Supposedly, if you play it backwards, it says it's fun to smoke marijuana.
Oh man. And that's got to be the least family friendly thing Freddie Mercury ever did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. In these three particular cases, I've actually heard them.
Mm-hmm.
Like listen.
I've heard the Queen one. I've heard the Led Zeppelin one. I haven't heard the Eagles one.
I haven't. No, exactly. I haven't heard the Eagles one either. But I think if you like are told what to look for, you'll hear it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it never jumped out at me.
No, it's never something that I would have. It's all like you said. Usually it comes with a subtitle or somebody saying, if you listen back, you'll hear this.
Right. Right.
Because also, like, you can't. That's not how making lyrics forward works, right? Like,
right.
Like, Another One Bites the Dust fits Queen's general vibe.
Yeah.
Kind of a hot take. I think Queen made some great music, but kind of a singles band in my opinion. You know, really. There's no great Queen album.
No, I agree.
Yeah, they have some really good songs.
No,
they even have some really
Queen.
underrated B-sides. If you're a Queen fan, you need to listen to Seven Seas of Rye if you like their
maybe
big hits.
Maybe a great album is the soundtrack to 1980s Flash Gordon.
Oh, is that where that song "Flash Master of the Universe" comes from?
Yes. No, I'm being sarcastic.
Yeah.
As my emperor title.
That's right. As your title, Jason the Sarcastic. Yeah. Nobody knows who to execute around here.
Right. But no, you're right. Like, yeah, if someone told you, or someone had to have told you that, hey,
yeah,
they say this, and then you'll pick it up. But also,
it's always your friend who grew up like they're actually like pretty Christian. Or like, because like, right. So my background is I'm half Jewish, half Italian Catholic. I grew up with more of the Catholicism and like got more into the Judaism as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
But like the way that I was raised Catholic, I was really raised Italian. And that involved going to a Catholic church. Mm-hmm. But, it didn't as compared to, I feel like my friends who grew up Protestant, really believed a lot of the stuff like more concretely. Yes. And they were the people who would be like, hey, do you know if you listen to this song backwards, it's about something nefarious?
Yeah, no, exactly so. I grew up, I'm like German Catholic.
Yeah.
And yeah, none of this like hit my rate. I shouldn't say none of it, but most of this was not like a big deal. There's a couple things here that I'm going to get to that I definitely remember. Mm-hmm. But as far as like, being a practicing Catholic at the time, they weren't railing against Led Zeppelin or the Eagles.
No.
Like seem sort of agnostic about heavy metal music but
the Catholic Church is interesting because and I know we need to continue, but it's interesting. But I've always found it really interesting, like the spectrum of people you'll find in a Catholic church, because it is a lot of people who it's more of an identity thing, a lot of people who really just like the more positive messages of Christianity, all the way down to like some really intense like fundamentalists. And they
Right.
really, it's probably the
Exactly.
only religion where you'll find all of these people.
Like under
I
one
found
roof.
it somewhat similar in some Orthodox Jewish spaces that I've been in as well, but
Really? Yeah.
yeah, because especially like living in more in the Midwest, where it's, you know, oftentimes the only option is the Orthodox synagogue. So you'll have a lot of
Right.
people like me next to people who believe some pretty, you know, out there things. I used to go to a synagogue with a rabbi who thought that heliocentricity, like the Earth revolving around the sun, was
Huh?
fake.
Really?
Yeah, because it's not
Um,
in the Talmud. The Talmud says,
oh,
yeah.
yeah. No,
Anyway, but the Catholic Church
yeah,
and Judaism were not rallying against backmasking.
right. Not, yeah. Um, where was I at? Oh, that's right. Yeah, so people started just listening to any old album backwards, you know, claiming they heard this or that. So then, of course, being aware of that, bands did start deliberately putting backwards messages
Yeah, of course.
in their music. Um, Pink Floyd, I think, you know, the kind of famously in their album The Wall, put a message that if you listen to it backward, it said like, congratulations, you found this message.
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing, but yeah, no, tons like since then, like this is something I think literally goes on to this day. That I mean, people that put or bands that like put messages backwards include Styx, Electric Light Orchestra, even Weird Al.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, this is like very most heavy metal bands, even to this day.
Oh, really? To this day?
Like, yeah, have like a deliberate backwards message, like hidden within the music. But again, this comes off the like, this is something that was like popularized that maybe shouldn't have been, or you know,
It doesn't make any music better.
we'll get to this. Yeah.
That's all I was
Oh,
going to
I
say.
don't know. I think that like I
mean, some of the
so,
prog rock uses do and stuff like that.
yeah.
But I think that using it because you want people to play it backwards and find something is generally like it's generally very gimmicky.
No, absolutely. I think that honestly, like backmasked lyrics are just like it's sort of grating.
Yeah, no, it's
But
it immediately throws you out of the song.
yeah, but like a guitar part that's recorded backwards, like man, that's
that goes hard.
That's shit. Yeah, yeah.
Once you get that,
yeah. No, so I get it, but yeah. So anyway, bands were like deliberately, and to this day, still deliberately put like backmask messages and use that as a recording technique. In terms of this story about subliminal messages, again, we'll pause again. We're going to leave the world of music. So we've talked about the idea of like flashing an image, right, will influence people. The idea that there are messages encoded backwards in popular music.
Right.
That brings us to 1980. And the book, that's when the book Michelle Remembers.
Oh, I know about this.
Yeah.
What
do you know about it?
I know that this is a book. So should I just tell my version of the story?
No,
you can tell people. You could tell
that's
people.
Why I asked you.
Okay, yeah. So Michelle Remembers was a book written in 1980 by a girl who alleged to have suffered satanic ritual abuse at the hands of, I believe it was a bunch of people at her school or a bunch of adults in her community. But it was written by her and her psychologist and later her husband, Lawrence something or other.
I wouldn't know that, but
and the narrative was very much pushed by her parents, making the family and the psychiatrist a lot of money,
Mhm.
and also essentially making law enforcement in the 1980s spend a bunch of time implanting a bunch of traumatic memories into kids' heads, putting
Uh-huh.
people away for decades.
Right. Yes, exactly so.
Yeah.
No, you're spot on. Yeah, the book, which I feel like was pretty quickly debunked as a hoax.
I mean,
But
obviously, like this
it,
is the type of shit that I
yeah,
just like. I know people in the past were not dumber, especially 43 years ago. But
yeah,
people believe dumb shit now. But like, if this was around now, it wouldn't. I don't think that it would have made this sort of splash. I think it would kind of be in the QAnon mix, and the QAnon mix was
right,
a big and
right,
dangerous
uh-huh,
thing. Like these people are a lot more
right.
aggressive and dangerous now, but are not as like the whole country doesn't stop for a Michelle Remembers anymore.
No, no, you're exactly right. And I think what it was, um, I think because even even in the 80s, I might even go so far as to say like 90s, at least pre-internet, uh, the um, the way that like media disseminated information, like there were much fewer outlets for that,
Right.
right? Like you had, even if you had cable, you had maybe like five channels that would do like current events. Um, you could only listen to the radio, and you might have 10 radio stations.
Right.
So, like,
And
an
TV
idea,
stopped like at night, right? Like it'd be like if you got to be like 11
yes.
p.m. or midnight,
Oh,
it'd
yeah,
be like
yeah,
here's it's just going to show the
yeah,
American flag until like 6 a.m.,
yeah,
right?
yeah. No, exactly. I definitely remember as like uh as a kid, like watching TV to the point that like it just stopped.
Yeah.
Yeah, there would be an image of the flag, it'd play the national anthem, and then it would go to like the test pattern. And
Oh,
it would
really?
be on the test pattern for
I thought it just stayed on
eight
the
hours.
flag.
No, 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 it would just like stop.
Yeah.
And at some point, even the test pattern would go away and it would just be static. Wasn't
Oh.
have you seen like the movie Poltergeist?
I have
Like the
actually never
original?
seen Poltergeist.
Oh, okay. No, because that's like part of it is, the little girl is looking at the like the staticky TV screen, and that's how, the ghosts are talking to her.
Uh-huh. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but anyway, yeah, no, no, you're exactly right. So this kicks off the book Michelle Remembers, um, kicks off the Satanic Panic of the
Right.
80s, um, which that actually like I could do a series of episodes about
I
that.
think we
Like
should
I
because when we
lived through
started this show, you talked to me and said I want to do a Satanic Panic something.
right.
And at this point,
Yeah.
we can make it work.
No. So like I was born like early 70s. So I was like a kid to adolescent throughout all of this. And
Mhm.
I clearly remember because I was, here's a big surprise, um, maybe a little bit of an outsider
No,
as a
of
kid,
course.
maybe like what we would now consider neurodivergent or and I was exactly in the crosshairs of the satanic
Well,
panic.
that's exactly the sort of thing that, like, I got to, like, because I grew up in the 2000s, I got to
Uh,
be an emo kid and then, like, a theater kid. And, like, when I was being weird and edgy and dark through that, like, middle school to high school period,
mhm,
the areas in which it was concerning, like, I never had to worry about that. And then when I learned about the Satanic Panic, I realized, like, oh, like, I could have absolutely been one of those kids that, like, a
yeah,
kid was murdered in my town. And if it was 30 years ago and not now, and also
right,
like no kid was murdered in my town when I lived there. Like,
right,
but if I
right.
lived in my town 30 years ago and a kid was murdered, like I could have like it very well could have devolved into a scenario where me or a bunch of other kids I knew, some of whom I liked, some of whom I didn't, were the
Mhm,
suspects for it.
yeah.
To the point that when
Yeah,
I heard this,
yeah,
when I've heard the
yeah.
story of like, the West Memphis Three,
Uh-huh.
are you going to talk
Yeah.
about that on this episode or no?
No.
Okay. The West Memphis Three, just very briefly, three people went to prison for a satanic ritual murder, ended up being
Uh-huh.
exonerated decades later. But well, no, they ended up being released decades later, but technically not exonerated to save
Right.
some judge's ass. The When I heard that story, I immediately pictured people I knew, both like that I was friends with and that I wasn't, growing up, because there is something about it that I think does resonate,
Mhm.
to this day.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
it does seem genuinely terrifying that, like, being a goth kid, you could be accused of child murder.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the adults that were actually doing that in your town were usually aligned with the church or the police or the, town, whatever.
Right. Right. Well, it
Maybe the
was
town
just sort
government.
of it wasn't even necessarily like that. Like my parents, like even my parents definitely like bought into that, and they're like, I would say, like, decent people. They made some mistakes.
Yeah. But you
It's
would say
the
your family, would you
70s.
say they're fairly conservative people? Not necessarily like Trumpers, but
No, uh,
like
I would say they're conservative leaning,
yeah.
but also I think that like they have like good sort of instincts, or like, man,
No, I
I
don't
don't
mean
know
that in
how
a
to.
disparaging way. Like
No,
my
no,
grandma on my
but
mother's side, uh
right,
who actually, like, is, I would say, conservative, and in some ways that I think are bad politically, but also like, it's sort of like a trade-off of like, she has a very strong sense of obligation to the people around her. She looks at the world like with a certain degree of like a sense of obligation to family, exchange with like a don't like there are
right.
I would not have her listen to this podcast.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, no, I think that I think also it's again, given like, all right, in the like 70s, 80s, and even early 90s, the media landscape was so much more limited
Mhm.
that it was, people did sort of buy into like these broad narratives that, like, regardless of where they were on the political spectrum, because that's all they would ever hear, if that makes sense.
Right.
So all right, so here I'm talking about um subliminal messages, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to get to or I've already introduced the idea that they're like in rock and metal, and we're going to keep pursuing that, right? But that wasn't necessarily conservative, or just a like conservative concern. The I know in the early 90s, the what the hell is it called, the parents music resource council
Yeah. The
was
people behind
put
the
together by
people
Tipper
behind the parental
Gore.
advisory stickers, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. And that was put together by Tipper Gore.
Mhm.
So it was like a
Although
kind
I
of a
will say
broad
that,
spectrum.
Republican and Democrat was a bit different back then, and Al Gore was kind
No,
of a conservative
absolutely.
Democrat. But
Oh,
yeah, I see what you're saying.
absolutely. Yeah. But I guess what I'm trying to convey is like, this was just so like pervasive.
Oh
The
yeah.
idea that there were like satanic cults, there was like this movement towards
It
like
almost seems like this
literal
is the time
explicit
that
things.
people should. It almost seems like this is something they shouldn't have been worried about in the limited window of peace and prosperity that was the 1990s.
But I think
To the
that's why they were, is because
Oh,
like
that's
the Cold War paranoia, this was an extension of that as the Cold War
who's
was
after us
winding down.
now.
Yeah, right, right. I think it's part and parcel to that.
Very interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, 1980, Michelle remembers, kicks off the Satanic Panic.
Mhm.
Um, at this point in mass culture, the idea of like subliminal messaging or you know, kind of subconscious, unconscious like manipulation. Got a lot of like cultural purchase. Like this was something that was sort of broadly accepted and was sort of the thrust of like a lot of fiction and literature. The idea that like we're all sort of brainwashed by unconscious messages we're receiving from at the time in the 80s with its four broadcast, you know, four aerial broadcast channels, and if you were lucky you would get cable, so you would have 10 channels. But yeah, it really became like it had a lot of a lot of people sort of bought into it,
Right.
like it was, again, you know, kind of something that you could make a movie about or a TV series about and people would sort of relate to it. I'm thinking specifically, at least one of my favorites of this time is 1988's They Live.
Oh.
Have you seen this?
Yes, I have, and that's very interesting because They Live is a movie that I've always understood as more of a left-wing film.
No, it is, but it plays on it buys into the idea of like subliminal messaging.
Yes.
Like yes, it is very much a like
Anti-capitalist.
anti, you know, Reaganism, Thatcherism.
Yeah. No, I love that movie.
Yeah, no, it is absolutely that. But it does acknowledge the existence of like subliminal messaging.
Yes.
Because Roddy Piper gets magic sunglasses and he sees like messages and shit and aliens and yeah. Yeah. So this is something, my point being, this is something like culturally, right, in the United States, it's something kind of given that you can be manipulated, right. By like messages, subliminal unconscious messages. Now we're going to swing back to the world of heavy metal music.
All right.
In the 80s. So in 1985, a 18-year-old and 20-year-old, two dudes, one's 18, one's 20, they drive out to, they're from Las Vegas. They drive out to, you know, the desert, quarry, whatever. They're listening to Judas Priest, you know, drinking beer, smoking weed, as one does. They make a suicide pact, and one of them was successful and one was not, meaning that he survived.
He survived, but he did attempt.
He did attempt.
Okay.
So while hospitalized, he communicated that he felt like compelled, that he didn't want to do it, but he felt like he had to do it.
I mean, when someone's asking you to make a suicide pact, that is a scary situation, and one that it could be easy to get like swept into.
I have to imagine so.
Especially if you've been like on the road with somebody for a few days, you know, you're in, was the other guy the one in the more, like, of the two, would you say the other guy was the one with the more power over the situation? Like it was his car, he was the older one, something like that? You know?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Now, like I said, I've read several sources and none.
Well, either way, like, let's, like, if I'm in a car with you, this is why we don't go on tour, Jason, because if I'm in a car with you for like 3 or 4 days,
right,
and you know, we're smoking cigarettes, we're drinking, I'm like, you know, man, like, you know, we're you know, we're doing little, you know, we're doing whatever we're doing that we don't necessarily want to admit to on the podcast. And then at the end of it, we get to our venue, and I say, if this
Mhm.
fucking show doesn't work out, if this one is not the best show of the tour, I say we both fucking shoot ourselves on stage. I could just see the scenario where you get into it.
Yeah. I guess um so I guess my take is that our understanding of like mental health, right, in 1985 was way less than it is today. And it's I we shouldn't get into it on this silly joke podcast.
Yeah, probably
Like
not.
there's any number of reasons why an 18 and 20-year-old dudes may decide like maybe it's not worth it
Yes.
at that time, and they just so happen to be listening to Judas Priest,
Right.
which would be popular metal music, like it's popular music at the time.
Yeah, no, it's still popular now. Yeah, I love me
Yeah.
some Judas Priest.
Yeah, well, I do too. Yeah.
Breaking the law.
No, that's actually my go-to karaoke song.
Oh, really?
I do Breaking the Law. Yeah.
I do All the Small Things by Blink-182 because it's fun to do the voice.
Oh, it is. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, so anyway, in 1990, the band Judas Priest was sued in a Nevada court over the attempted suicide. Supposedly playing the music, I think the exact song they were listening to was off the like Stained Class album. I'm not familiar with that one. Better With You, Better Than Me. And supposedly there were backwards messages that said like, kill yourself and do it. And that's why like the parents brought this lawsuit, because they thought the Judas Priest was directly responsible for this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was brought to trial in 1990. Yeah. So Judas Priest sued over by the families of these two young men, claiming that the backwards messages like deliberately or directly contributed to their deaths, even though the dude that survived the immediate aftermath like ended up dying, unfortunately, a few years later. As part of their defense, Judas Priest guitarist Glenn Tipton went back and listened to the album backwards to as kind of a way to prove that you could hear whatever you wanted to. And he came out with he was able to produce messages that said, "My chair is broken. I want gum, and please help me keep my job." So the idea is that in anything, like
you say things backwards, they'll sound like something.
Right. And the Judas Priest band manager testified. This I actually really agree with. If something to the effect of, if we really had this much power, why wouldn't we be telling people to buy 7 copies of the album?
Yeah, and not kill themselves and not buy any more copies ever again.
Right. So it ended up the case was dismissed. That the judge citing that there was no scientific evidence that proved that even if the message was there, it would have any effect on anyone. All right. That was 1990. Throughout the 2000s, there is, thanks to advances in technology and research methodology, there is some evidence that they begin to uncover some evidence that subliminal messages do sort of nudge people one way or the other. But generally it's into things that people would be like inclined to do anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So if, for example, one study, flashed images of like Lipton iced tea,
Mm-hmm.
right? If people reported themselves as thirsty, they would be more likely to drink Lipton. But if they weren't thirsty, they wouldn't drink. They wouldn't buy Lipton.
Yeah, it's like if you flashed a subliminal message that said "smoke weed and play Crusader Kings."
Right.
To me, I would probably do it.
Yeah. No, and yeah, that is kind of a major criticism of this idea is do people really need to be pushed to like drink alcohol and
Yeah.
like it doesn't make any sense. In the year 2000, in a Bush and Gore debate, the word rats, I guess, appeared like subliminally in a pro-Bush advertisement, using footage from their debate.
Okay.
So again, maybe still trying to use
the word rats, you said?
Rats, right.
Oh, okay, so trying to invoke that the Democrats were a bunch of rats.
Right, yeah. I mean, there's Democrats. I think it was also bureaucrats.
Okay, that makes sense.
Would like flash.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and even into the 2000s, music was still being accused of putting satanic messages. Aside from the fact that like heavy metal bands, I don't know, Cradle of Filth, Motorhead, like deliberately did that as kind of a joke. People were accusing even like pop musicians like Justin Bieber and Beyonce of having like backward satanic messages within their songs. And of those two, I actually do sort of believe that Bieber may have made like some sort of deal with the unholy to become a popular musician.
That's just Beyonce, the only way to that's just the only way to crack it as a Canadian American in the industry. Discrimination being what it is.
Right. Beyonce, I think like she totally, I think it's just a total coincidence because yeah, she absolutely has earned it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So this idea of subliminal messaging, still carries to this day, even though it's doesn't get like quite as much attention. As late as last year, legendary guitarist and enormous asshole Eric Clapton blamed subliminal messaging for the widespread adoption of the COVID-19 vaccine. That he thought he was anti.
So he was anti-vaccine, and he thought the way that people got it was through subliminal messaging.
Yes.
So it seems like that's really different because there's no monoculture anymore.
Right. No, there isn't.
Yeah, like you could at least say like, oh, if there was like subliminal messaging to get this in the movie Picnic. Well, everybody saw Picnic because what's going to happen? Are there going to be ants?
Right. It was one of like.
Are they going to go with the ham or the tuna?
Right.
These are the questions I need to know. But yeah, what are we all fucking watching today?
Though ham and tuna both would be maybe a little bit gross on a picnic, depending on how long you.
Well, you eat. I mean, people bring sandwiches on picnics.
Oh no, of course, but I don't know. Were there coolers back then? I guess I'm thinking
you could just put ice in a box. Yeah, you could. I mean, ice in a chat. Like,
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
or you just eat your sandwich first. You know, people were less fussy about this stuff back then.
Right. Well, I think that people sort of accepted that like one out of every what 10, 8 of them were gonna die of like lead poisoning,
Yeah,
salmonella, like something that you just,
some
tetanus.
easily avoidable
Right.
cause of
Right.
death.
Um yeah, no. But that's where we are today. The current current understanding, even though like we do, thanks to like imaging, can do brain scans, and again, there is some evidence that like quick subliminal messages will influence people. It's kind of marginal. um there's no evidence whatsoever that backwards messages in music do anything. uh but I think a lot of the current thinking is that this is mostly attributed to a phenomenon called pareidolia.
Periodolia.
Pareidolia, which,
Periodolia. I hardly know her.
yeah, no, that pareidolia, which is the the idea that human brains just seek pattern and are going to find like a face in the moon, say, or shapes in clouds. Like
Right.
we're just naturally inclined to find.
Yeah, I mean, cars look like faces when you look at them. It doesn't mean they're faces.
Right. I mean, unless it's the movie Cars,
That's true.
and then it is kind of faces, but
Well, how
um
that's we're gonna where do the baby cars come from? Something.
no, but this was actually a really fascinating topic. Like I've just like with yours, I feel like I've only sort of scratched the
Oh
surface.
yeah. No, you can go
Like an
crazy on all
hour.
this stuff. It almost
Yeah.
makes you like it would have been a bad idea for a producer to have a third person on the show also presenting something for 20 to 30 minutes. When both of us took like over an hour to do ours. And I'm probably already going to divide this. Maybe I don't know if I'm going to divide this. You think I should divide this into 2 parts?
I don't know. I think it could be a little longer because it is like traveling, but like the like
That's
traveling.
true because our audience is going to be traveling.
I wouldn't do, man. I would maybe go to like an hour 45. I don't think that's outrageous.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying
Or
like
what are we at? Are we at like 6 hours?
so we have done so it's hard to tell because we lost some time at the start of the Zoom meeting, the first one. We have done 1, 2, 3. I mean, we started at one. This is probably about 3 hours. If I edit it down, we're probably at about 2 hours 45, 2.5 maybe.
You know what? Fine. Let's
Yeah,
just
I think this might be a 2-parter because I think we'll see, but I think this is a solid hour, 2 hour 15-minute episodes.
all right.
Yeah, and then we should figure out.
Or like we can do it 2 parts and maybe you're the producer.
One of them is a
course.
bonus episode.
Right. Like we do both in the same week, but
Yeah, I think we should do.
like one Monday and one Wednesday.
That sounds fun. Let's do that.
Yeah.
That was my idea, the producer. You all heard it here first from me, Andrew Michaels, that this is how we decided to do it.
Aren't I an associate producer?
Oh, you are an associate producer. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Associate producer.
Yeah. No, I really liked this. But
No, this was a lot. This was a ton of fun.
yeah, it was a lot of information.
A lot of information. It was exhausting to research.
Yeah.
But a lot of fun to do. So
It was fun. Yeah.
Yeah, no, this was a ton of fun. And yeah, so you are listening to this on Wednesday or Thursday. No, not Thursday, because that's Thanksgiving. Spend time with your fucking
Well, you
family.
could be.
Well, it
No,
could be the
no,
morning. If you're cooking on
I
Thanksgiving
don't
for your
know.
family, you probably need some podcasts to,
Yeah,
I know my dad
not
listens to like the Avett Brothers all day when he cooks. I would that's how you fucking create a family annihilator.
and
I don't know how he does it.
yeah, and not everyone like I don't really celebrate Thanksgiving. Like
Oh, I love Thanksgiving.
I,
Not
I'm
the like meaning of the holiday and like the subjugation of the Native Americans. It's
oh
just the
yeah,
only time my
no,
whole
of
family is
course.
together.
Right.
So we do a
No, I get
big,
that.
big feast.
Right. Yeah.
And make a lot of food. If you're but if you are alone on Thanksgiving, you have two options. Number one, go to the bar. You can meet some fun divorced guys. You could have some interesting conversations. I'm not gonna say good, but they will change you.
About like what the band Sticks or
You will see where the
what should
night
happen to
goes.
the immigrants.
You will see where the night goes. I had a strategy in high school where I would find the teacher who's going through a divorce, getting good with them. Then how are you going to fail me? I'm the only family you have left.
Wow.
And I'll tell you, you hear some interesting things as a young man talking to a divorced guy.
Yeah. Oh, yes. That I can attest to. But
Yeah. And the other thing you could do is maybe listen to this show. I guess you already have. Or listen to. Yeah, you can't listen to the next episode because it's not out yet. You could listen to the last episode again. You share it with your. You should share it with.
Is there like legit? Is there something out like another podcast, right, that you would recommend? Just for people on Thanksgiving.
Just for people who are alone on Thanksgiving,
or just like as a supplement to this, not as a replacement.
Oh, I feel like this was a lot to put yourself through if you were listening to this.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say, maybe do some. Maybe send this to your family. Say, maybe sending them this podcast will be the first step to rebuilding those bridges.
I'm gonna say,
unless they're toxic, then send them to their family and say, "You see this good podcast that I listen to? This is what you're missing."
Right.
I will never recommend you a podcast again. Consider this goodbye.
Yeah, I would recommend, because this episode was maybe a little heavy. Maybe flipping on one of those stupid Hallmark Christmas movies.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
They're almost certainly airing right now.
Oh, yeah.
So then you can balance this sort of.
I think they have Hallmark Thanksgiving movies. Charlie Brown Thanksgiving is fun. Watch that.
There you go. Right,
That's
Charlie Brown Thanksgiving. Yeah. No.
Maybe the Macy's Day Parade. I used to like the Power Rangers floats. I used to watch that with my grandma.
Oh yeah. No, you're right. The Macy's Day Parade. Yeah.
No. It's probably already stopped because if you're alone on Thanksgiving, you're not getting up bright and early.
Yeah. No, no, that's actually really good.
Yeah.
All right.
And remember, enjoy yourselves.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't have a sign off that we tell people to remember. Want to come up with one right now?
Remember.
We just recorded for 3 hours. We might as well.
Remember the phantom time.
Remember the phantom time.
Yes. Remember everything's a lie.
You know what I'm going to say?
Yeah.
The only time that isn't phantom time is the present.
That's pretty good, actually.
I think should that be our new sign off?
Yeah.
That's our new sign off. Remember, the only time that isn't the phantom time is the present.
Yeah. So milk the fuck out of that.
Yeah, exactly. Crank that doggy.
Actually, now I think crank that doggy.